She rang the doorbell twice. That alone told me everything. Ivy had always been precise, always measured, 2 rings, never one, like she wanted to be noticed but not needy. When I opened the door, she smiled like we'd always been close. We hadn't. "Anna," she said, voice warm and careful, "you look lovely." I smiled back, polite. I told myself to believe her. Ben stood behind me, arms crossed, eyes tired. "It's just for a little while," he'd said the night before. "She got screwed over at work. She needs somewhere to land." Somewhere to land, and apparently that place was our home. The first week was fine. Ivy unpacked quickly, made herself useful, helped clean, cooked dinner one night, folded the towels without being asked. She had a way of sliding into routines like she belonged there. But it wasn't the chores I noticed. It was the way she watched us. Her eyes scanned everything. The way I poured Ben's coffee, the way he answered me with half sentences, the way we barely touched anymore. She noticed it all but said nothing. Just smiled. On Wednesday she brought wine. I was setting the table when she appeared with a bottle of Merlot and 2 glasses. "For just us girls," she said. Ben was in the shower. I hesitated. "Come on," she laughed. "Don't tell me my little brother doesn't let you drink without supervision." That stung. I didn't let it show. We sat in the living room. She poured generous. "To sisters," she said. I drank slowly. She looked around, eyes landing on the framed wedding photo above the fireplace. "You know," she said, "I always thought Ben would end up with someone louder, more." She stopped herself. "More what?" I asked. She shrugged. "I don't know. Just different." I smiled tightly. "I'm sure you did," I said. The next day Ben was distant. Again, he said he was tired, stayed late at work, barely looked at me during dinner. Ivy, on the other hand, seemed energized. She took over the kitchen, made jokes Ben laughed at, remembered what he liked in his coffee better than I ever did. I started going to bed earlier, not because I was tired. Because I didn't want to see how comfortable they looked in my living room without me. On Sunday, I came home early from the market. They didn't hear me come in. Ben was in the kitchen. Ivy leaned against the counter, too close. She was laughing at something he said, touching his arm. Nothing obvious, nothing wrong, but everything about it felt wrong. I stepped forward. She saw me first. "Anna," she said, bright as ever, "we were just talking about your roasted chicken. You still use rosemary, right?" I nodded. "Always." Ben smiled at me like nothing had happened, and maybe nothing had yet, but something in my stomach curled tight. It wasn't jealousy, it was instinct. Something was moving between them, something they weren't ready to name, and I had just opened the door for it to grow. The strange thing was, she never stepped over the line, not exactly. She folded the laundry, she made tea. She even remembered I liked my toast a little burnt. She was careful, and that's what scared me the most. Ivy didn't try to act like a guest. She moved like a woman returning to something she believed had always belonged to her. Ben stopped kissing me on the forehead. I don't know when it happened, but one morning I noticed. He handed me coffee, same as always, same mug, same steam rising, but the space between his hand and mine felt colder. No kiss. No glance, just the mug. I told myself not to read into it, but when you live in a house with tension, the smallest gestures sound like alarms. That evening I heard them laughing in the guest room. The door was open. I was just walking past. She was telling him a story about childhood, something about a hamster he flushed on accident and blamed on her. Ben was laughing so hard he had to sit on the edge of the bed. I hadn't heard him laugh like that in months. "Remember how you cried when Mom cut your hair?" she said. "You looked like a soggy mushroom." He threw a pillow at her. She caught it, then silence, soft, close. I kept walking. My feet didn't slow down, but my chest did. It thudded. A warning. Later that night I opened my laptop to look for an old recipe, but something was wrong. My email had been left open, not mine, his. Ben's inbox stared at me, blinking. I never knew his password. I never asked. But someone had logged in from this computer. There were drafts, most deleted, except one. It was written in Ivy's voice, informal, chatty. Addressed to a family friend from his company. It said things about me, that I was distant lately. That the marriage was stressed. That maybe Ben married too fast out of guilt after Dad died. My name wasn't even in it, just she. I knew that tone. That was Ivy's voice, but it was typed under his account. I stared at the screen. I didn't touch anything. Then I slowly closed the laptop and sat in the dark, thinking, plotting, realizing it wasn't about romance. It wasn't even about sex, it was about power, control, territory. Ivy wasn't trying to have Ben, she was trying to erase me. The next day I didn't confront her, I smiled, I offered her coffee. I told her I found her earrings in the laundry and handed them back carefully like they were made of glass. She blinked, confused, then smiled, but I watched her fingers tremble as she took them. That night, while Ben snored beside me, I searched for a store in town, not for weapons, for hidden cameras, the kind that sit inside alarm clocks or air fresheners, the kind that catch what people say when they think no one is listening. If she wanted to play quiet, then I'd win quietly. The camera arrived 2 days later, a plain black cube disguised as a motion sensor light. I placed it on the hallway shelf just across from the kitchen, angled slightly toward the guest room. It blinked once when it turned on, then disappeared into the silence. Just like me, that night I made chicken curry for dinner, Ivy's favorite. She joked that I was trying to poison her. Ben laughed, I laughed too. I watched her reach across him for the salt, watched his hand brush hers. They didn't flinch, they didn't have to anymore. Boundaries had already dissolved, slow, subtle, polite as steam. I cleared the dishes, let them sit on the couch. Let them laugh at a movie I'd seen twice already, then I went to bed and listened. The house was quiet, but not still. I knew the difference. At 2:12 a.m. the hallway light clicked on, soft footsteps, murmurs, low voices. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because I was awake in a way I hadn't been in weeks. I was ready. The next morning I downloaded the footage, fast-forwarded past the evening lull, the dinner cleanup, the TV chatter. Then I saw it. 2:14 a.m. Ivy in her robe, hair down, no makeup, walking into the kitchen. Ben followed 2 minutes later. He wasn't wearing a shirt. She poured wine. He didn't stop her. They stood close, too close. She leaned in, whispering something. The mic didn't catch every word, but it didn't need to. One sentence was clear. You don't have to keep pretending she makes you happy. Ben didn't respond, not at first, then. I'm tired of fighting. She reached out, touched his arm. He didn't move, didn't back away, didn't stop her, just stood there, like he didn't know where else to go. Like this, her was easier than facing the truth of what he'd become. A man who didn't lie, but let lies grow around him. I closed the laptop. My fingers were ice, not from shock, from confirmation. There it was, not a kiss, not a confession, but something worse. Permission for Ivy to keep pushing. Permission for my marriage to dissolve in the name of comfort. Permission for betrayal wrapped in silence. I didn't cry, not that night, not the next morning. Instead, I printed the transcript, word for word. Then I wrote one line at the bottom in pen. You've said enough, it's my turn now. That evening, I called Ben's mother, invited her for dinner, just the three of us. I said, Ivy too. Especially Ivy. She hesitated, then agreed. I hung up, smiled, because I wasn't planning a meal, I was setting a stage. And this time I wouldn't be the one sitting quietly. This time the woman no one expected to fight back would speak. I set the table like it was any other night. White plates, linen napkins, the good silver we only used for holidays, every detail perfect. Ben noticed. Expecting royalty, he joked. I smiled, just family. He didn't ask more, he never did anymore. Ivy came into the kitchen wearing a silk blouse and too much perfume. Her eyes scanned the table, then flicked toward me. Looks beautiful, she said. Thank you, I replied. I thought it was time we made a memory. She tilted her head, curious but not suspicious. Not yet. His mother arrived at 7, warm as always, soft voice, careful steps. She kissed my cheek and handed me a bottle of wine. Ben poured it. I served. Ivy smiled too much, laughed too loud. I let her. The dinner was normal, unremarkable even. But just as Ivy reached for the last slice of bread, I stood up. I'd like to show everyone something, I said calmly. Ben looked confused. His mother paused, fork halfway to her mouth. I walked over to the TV, inserted the USB. Picked up the remote, pressed play. It began with static. Then the hallway footage flickered on screen, dim lighting, timestamp glowing at the top. Ben's mother leaned forward. Ivy froze. The audio played softly. You don't have to keep pretending she makes you happy. Then Ben's voice, I'm tired of fighting. No shouting, no nudity, just implication, just truth, the kind that doesn't need volume to cut deep. I turned it off before it got worse. Silence settled over the table like a storm cloud. I looked at Ben's mother first. I thought you should know what's been happening in your son's house. She covered her mouth, eyes wide, hurt. Ivy stood abruptly. You've been spying, she snapped, recording us like some obsessed roommate. I offered. Her face paled. Ben opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Of course it didn't. Men like him never have words when they're needed most. I looked at him, calm, clear. You didn't stop her, I said. You didn't say yes, but you didn't say no either. He rubbed his forehead. Anna, I didn't. You let her, I said. And that's worse. Ivy turned to his mother. She's twisting it. You know me, you raised me. But the older woman just stared at her, quiet, steady. Then she looked at me. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I smiled. I already did it. I walked to the sideboard, picked up a thick envelope, placed it in front of Ben. He looked at it, then at me. What's this? Temporary separation agreement, I said. 3 months, no contact. He didn't open it. Ivy's voice rose behind him. She's manipulating you. No, I said, turning to her. You did that. I'm just giving him a choice. Ben finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. Why 3 months? Because I want you to learn how to think without her voice in your head. I looked at Ivy one last time, and I want her gone by morning. I picked up my glass, toasted no one, and walked out of the room. Behind me no one followed. I woke up before sunrise, not because I couldn't sleep, but because the silence felt new, like the house had exhaled. No perfume in the hallway, no soft footsteps trying to sound accidental. No whispering behind a half-closed door, just stillness, and me. I made coffee slow that morning, ground the beans by hand, boiled the water, watched the steam curl upward like something sacred. It tasted stronger than usual, better. Maybe because no one else would drink from that pot today, maybe because I had finally stopped pretending I was sharing a home. By 8 a.m., Ivy was gone. I heard the wheels of her suitcase bump down the porch steps. She didn't say goodbye, didn't knock on my door, just vanished, the way all illusions do when the light finally hits them right. Ben didn't text, didn't call. He knew better now. The envelope I'd handed him sat untouched on the hallway table, still sealed, still waiting, but I wasn't, not anymore. That afternoon I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened the windows, every one of them, let the air in. Let the memory of her out. I stripped the sheets off the guest bed, washed them twice, donated her throw blanket, vacuumed every inch of the room where she whispered things she didn't think I'd ever hear. Then I lit a candle, vanilla and cedar. Warm, honest, mine. A friend came by around 3, Susan. She'd known me since college. She stood in the entryway, glanced around, then said, "It feels different." "It is," I replied, lighter. She didn't ask for details. Just hugged me hard and said, "You did what most women wouldn't." "No," I said, "I did what most women shouldn't have to." That night, I sat in the living room with a journal I hadn't touched in over a year. I wrote 2 words on the first page, not hers. Not her marriage, not her brother's loyalty, not her version of my life, and definitely not her ending. I would write my own, even if it meant starting over, alone. Before bed, I stood in front of the mirror, looked at myself for a long time. No makeup, no jewelry, just me. There were lines I hadn't noticed before, small ones around my mouth. Softer skin under my eyes, but my gaze, it was sharper. Stronger, unapologetic. I whispered something aloud, not to myself but to her, the version of me that let Ivy stay too long. We're done now. Then I turned off the light, and slept better than I had in years. The first week without him felt like living inside an echo. His keys weren't in the bowl by the door, his shoes didn't trail mud across the hallway, his voice didn't fill the kitchen in the morning saying, "You're up early." I didn't miss any of it. I missed who I thought he was, and that wasn't the same thing. Day 4, I opened the separation envelope again, the one he still hadn't signed. I didn't need it signed, not really. I'd already separated myself in heart, in trust, in dignity, but I left it there, visible, a silent deadline on the edge of the table, 3 months, 90 days for him to stand on his own. To face himself without Ivy shielding him from guilt. I wasn't giving him another chance. I was giving him a mirror. My mother called. She'd heard things through cousins, through whispers. She didn't ask for the story. She just said, "Tell me how you're sleeping." I smiled into the phone, like someone who finally changed the locks. She exhaled, "Then you did the right thing." It wasn't approval I needed from her, it was this. A reminder that sometimes peace is more important than being right. Ben texted on day 7, "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for 5 minutes, then I turned the phone face down, no reply, not yet. That Sunday, I went back to the community center. I'd stopped volunteering when things got bad at home, but now I sat in the art room again, tiny hands tugging at my sleeve, asking how to mix purple from red and blue. I showed them. I watched their eyes light up. It was the first time I felt useful in months, not as a wife, not as a hostess, just as a human being who hadn't given up. Ben showed up on the 10th day. I saw his car from the window. I didn't open the door, but I watched him sit on the porch steps, head in his hands. He stayed there for 15 minutes, then he left. He didn't knock. Maybe he finally understood. That I wasn't angry, I was done. That night I wrote a letter, not to him, to myself. You didn't fail, you chose yourself. You walked away from a room where your voice no longer mattered, and that's not giving up, that's survival. I folded it, slipped it into the back of my journal. I wouldn't read it again for a while, but I'd written it, and that was enough. He came back on day 14. This time he knocked 3 times. I didn't move. But I watched him through the peephole, messy hair, slouched shoulders, eyes that looked like they hadn't slept. He held something in his hand, a small white envelope. I opened the door just enough to be heard. You have 2 minutes. He swallowed hard. I signed it, he said, holding out the envelope. The separation papers, everything, it's done. I didn't take it, not yet. He looked down, then back up. I needed time to understand what I let happen. You needed space, I said flat. No, he whispered. I needed to be stripped of comfort. That sentence, it hit deeper than I expected. He continued, voice cracking. I let her build a world where you were the problem. I watched her do it. I watched her talk circles around you, and I was tired, Anna. I didn't defend you because I didn't want the noise. I just wanted peace. I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door behind me. You don't get to call it peace when someone else bleeds for your silence. His hands trembled. I know now. I took the envelope from him, slowly, carefully, like it might still bite. Why are you really here? His eyes searched mine like they were drowning. I wanted to tell you I don't love her. I never did. I laughed once, bitter, short. That's the problem, Ben. You never loved her, but you still chose her. Over me, over truth, over the version of us that could have survived. He nodded, eyes glassy. Ivy's gone, he murmured. She left the country, cut everyone off. Good, I said. I didn't need revenge. I needed removal. A long pause. He looked at the porch boards, then back at me. I miss you. I let the silence hang between us. And then I said the words I'd been writing in my head for 2 weeks. You miss the version of me who stayed quiet, who tiptoed around your guilt. That version doesn't live here anymore. His lips parted, no words. I stepped back, opened the door halfway. You signed the papers, that's all I needed. He stayed on the porch as I went inside. I closed the door, not with anger, with clarity. Inside, I leaned against the wall, let my breath slow. Let my body feel what my heart had already processed. It was over, truly, finally, and no part of me wanted him back, not because I hated him, but because I had outgrown who I used to be beside him. I had survived what silence nearly destroyed, and now I was free. After that last knock on the door, I expected sadness to come, but it didn't, not the kind I thought. No gasping sobs, no heartbreak dragging me to the floor. Just quiet, honest, complete, earned quiet. It wrapped around me like a blanket, not a cage. That weekend I changed the locks, not out of fear, out of finality. A small, sharp click behind me as I closed the door, the kind that says, no more entry for people who couldn't choose me when it mattered. Ivy didn't try to reach out. Ben didn't either. No flowers, no emails. No apologies with tears, and I didn't look for them, because when a woman saves herself, she doesn't leave breadcrumbs behind. I started leaving the porch light off at night. For years I kept it on just in case he came home late. Just in case he needed to see his way. Now I liked the dark. It didn't scare me anymore. It felt honest. Still, mine. I told my mother everything. We sat in her kitchen, tea between us, quiet between confessions. When I finished, she didn't cry. She said, you didn't lose your marriage, Anna. You cleared space for something better than lies. Then she took my hand. You were raised by a woman who stayed too long. I didn't want that for you. I blinked, and the pain of that finally surfaced, not the betrayal but the pattern. I'd been trying to prove I could love harder than people could hurt me, but I was done proving. Now I was protecting. I reopened my old journal. The one I used before the wedding, the one I abandoned when life got too busy with compromise. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, I didn't win, I didn't lose, I ended the game. The community center asked me to lead a class, not art for kids this time, for women, divorced, widowed, left behind. They wanted someone who could talk about rebuilding. I said yes. The first day, 6 women showed up. Different stories, same ache. We didn't cry, we created. Paint, clay, letters never sent. One of them brought cookies. Another whispered, you're the first person who doesn't look at me like I'm broken. I smiled. Maybe it's because I know what broken really feels like. And what it takes to get up from it. That night I walked past the mirror. I didn't stop, I didn't check if I looked strong, I just knew I was, because strength wasn't something I wore. It was something I kept quietly, stubbornly, beneath every wound. And now, it was shining through. Spring came quietly, no big gestures, just slow mornings and softer air. I opened the windows again, this time not to push anything out, but to let something new in, the smell of fresh grass, the sound of birds I'd stopped noticing, the kind of peace that doesn't ask for attention, it just arrives and stays. Ben sent a letter. It came in a plain envelope, no return address, just my name in the corner in his familiar handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the kitchen table and stared at it for 3 days, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't need anything inside it. And on the 3rd night I knew I didn't. I opened it anyway. He wrote 5 pages. Most of it was him trying to name things too late. I didn't know how deep she got into my head. I thought I was protecting you by keeping the peace. I miss your silence more than I ever valued your voice when I had it. That one stung because it was the truth. He only realized what I was worth when I stopped spending myself on him. At the end, he wrote, I won't ask to come back, but I want you to know whatever you do next, whoever loves you next, I hope they earn it, every inch of it. I folded the letter, slid it into the drawer next to the receipt for the new locks, not out of sentiment, just record keeping, a reminder of where I'd been and what I'd walked away from. Ivy never contacted me again. But one afternoon, I saw her name tagged in a photo on social media. She was in another country, smiling, drink in hand, arm around a man I didn't know. Her caption said, New beginnings, good, let her start over. But this time, she'd do it far away from me because I wasn't her audience anymore. I wasn't her sister-in-law, I wasn't her obstacle, I was gone. That weekend, I threw a small dinner party, 3 women from the community class. One neighbor, my mom. Laughter filled the house like it used to, only this time it wasn't pretending. No one asked about Ben, no one needed to. I wasn't the woman in mourning, I was the woman who hosted joy, who served wine with a steady hand, who told stories without apologizing. After everyone left, I sat on the porch steps, same spot where Ben once stood, trying to take back what he gave away too easily. I looked at the stars, then whispered to no one. I didn't burn bridges, I built a home on the other side of them. And for the first time in a long time, I felt entirely, beautifully, quietly whole. I woke up without an alarm. The light through the curtains was soft, golden, forgiving. I lay there for a moment, still and quiet, listening to a silence that didn't ache anymore. There were no texts waiting, no tension in the hallway. No part of me dreading the sound of someone else's footsteps, just me and the peace I earned. I got dressed slowly, loose linen, bare feet, no makeup. I made coffee and drank it on the balcony. I used to make 2 cups automatically. For years now I made one, measured just right, not too strong, not too sweet, perfect for me. The mailbox held only 3 things that morning: a credit card offer, a flyer for carpet cleaning, and a small envelope from the county clerk. Finalized. Stamped, official, divorce, granted. I held the paper in both hands, not shaking, not grieving, just holding it like a document that closed a chapter, not a life, not a loss, just one door I'd already stepped through. I pinned it to my cork board behind the desk, right next to a photo of me at 24, standing alone at a cliff in Spain, arms out, laughing. I hadn't thought about that girl in years. She was fearless. She also trusted the wrong people, but she was also strong. I wasn't trying to become her again, I was becoming someone new, someone who remembered. And still moved forward. I met Charles at the lake that afternoon. It wasn't a date. We didn't label anything anymore, we just brought sandwiches, sat on the rocks, and talked about anything but the past. He asked me what I wanted next. I looked out over the water, felt the wind tugging at my sleeves. I want a life where I never feel small again, I said. He nodded like he already knew that, and maybe he did. That night I cleaned out the last drawer, the one I kept closed out of habit, out of fear. Inside were a few old letters, an anniversary card, a flash drive I hadn't dared plug in. I lit a candle, sat cross-legged on the rug, and one by one I let them go, the card I tore, the letters I burned. The flash drive I dropped into a glass of water, and then I whispered something not for them but for the version of me who stayed quiet too long. You did your best, but she's not here anymore. I went to bed with the windows open. No locks, no guards, no wait, just me. Sleeping in the center of the bed, breathing like someone who'd made it to the other side. Not as someone healed, but as someone free. And I didn't need the world to notice, because I noticed, and that was enough.